If your legs have been getting weaker, if the stairs feel steeper than they did a year ago, if you've quietly started planning your errands around how far you can walk before your legs start to complain, I need you to hear something that most people over 65 are never told. It may not be your muscles that are failing. It may be your kidneys. And there is a real published medical name for exactly what's happening. Let me tell you about Marilyn. Marilyn is 71, and she lives just outside Toledo, Ohio. For most of her life, she walked 3 miles most mornings, rain or shine, since before she retired from teaching. Then, sometime in her late 60s, the walks got shorter. Not all at once. That's the part that fools people. First, it was 2 miles instead of 3. Then she started taking the stairs one at a time, both feet on each step, holding the rail. Then there was a morning she pushed herself up out of her kitchen chair and needed both hands on the table to do it. She told herself what almost everyone tells themselves. Well, I'm not 20 anymore. Here's what Marilyn didn't know. 8 months before that morning at the kitchen table, her doctor had run routine blood work, and her kidney numbers had come back a little off. Not alarming, just a note on a page. Keep an eye on that, she was told, and nobody ever mentioned it again. And nobody, not one person, told her that the quiet decline in her legs and that quiet note about her kidneys were the same story. Because they were. What was happening to Marilyn has a name. Doctors call it uremic sarcopenia. And it is not primarily a problem of not exercising enough. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly how your kidneys can drain the strength right out of your legs and the specific foods and habits that help you fight back. I'm Dr. Clark. If you've watched my videos before, you know I don't do miracle cures, and I don't do fear for the sake of fear. What I care about is the gap between what shows up in a 15-minute annual checkup and what's actually happening inside your body every single day between those appointments. That gap is where stories like Marilyn's live. A number gets flagged, nobody connects it to the thing you're actually feeling, and a year goes by. My job today is to close that gap for you in plain language with the real science, and to be honest with you about what food can do and what it can't. Let's get into it. So let's correct the assumption right now before we go one step further. Most people believe that weak legs after 65 come down to 2 things. You got older and you slowed down. Age plus inactivity. And so the advice you always hear is move more, use it or lose it. That advice isn't wrong, exactly. Movement matters, and we'll get there. But for a huge number of older adults, it is aimed at the wrong target, because the muscle isn't just sitting idle and shrinking from disuse. The muscle is being actively broken down, and declining kidney function is one of the things pulling the trigger. This is not a fringe idea. It's a well-documented clinical syndrome, and the research on it is current. A major 2025 review in the journal Frontiers in Nutrition laid out the mechanisms in detail, and it's been echoed by several other independent reviews in the same window. The finding is consistent. As kidney function declines, the risk of losing muscle mass and strength climbs, and it climbs higher the further kidney function falls. They even separate it out from ordinary aging. Regular age-related muscle loss is called sarcopenia. When it's being driven specifically by what happens inside the body as the kidneys struggle, doctors call it uremic sarcopenia. Same weak legs, different engine underneath. And here's the part that should get your attention. Researchers estimate that among people with reduced kidney function, somewhere between 4 and 42% already have measurable muscle loss, depending on how far along things are. That's an enormous range, and it means 2 things. It means this is common, and it means it can start early. Early enough that your kidney numbers might still look basically fine on paper, while the process is already underway. So if you've been blaming yourself for quote unquote letting yourself go, I want you to set that down. This may never have been about willpower. Let me show you the machinery. Here is the one idea I want you to hold on to for the rest of this video, because everything else is going to hang off of it. As your kidneys decline, they flip your body into a state that actively burns muscle for parts. Write that down if you're taking notes. That's the whole story. Now let me show you the first way it happens. One of your kidneys' quiet daily jobs is managing acid. Every time you digest food, especially protein and grains, your body produces a small acid load. And healthy kidneys clear it out, so your blood stays in a very narrow, slightly alkaline range. Your body guards that range fiercely because your cells can't work properly outside of it. When kidney function drops, that acid clearance slows down. Acid starts to accumulate in the blood. Doctors call this state metabolic acidosis. And your body, faced with too much acid, does something that sounds almost unbelievable the first time you hear it. It starts dismantling your own muscle to fix the problem. Here's why. Muscle protein is built out of amino acids, and some of those amino acids can be used to help buffer acid. So when the blood turns too acidic, the body sends a signal and a cellular waste disposal system switches on. It's called the ubiquitin proteasome system. You don't need to memorize the name, just the picture. Think of it as the cell's demolition crew. Normally, it clears out old, damaged proteins, which is healthy. But in acidosis, that demolition crew gets overactivated, and it starts tearing down healthy, working muscle protein to free up those amino acids. This is confirmed, not theoretical. The 2025 reviews are explicit. Metabolic acidosis directly activates that ubiquitin proteasome system and drives muscle protein breakdown. So the concrete way to picture it is this. Your body starts treating your leg muscle as fuel it needs to burn off, not as tissue it needs to protect. Your quadriceps, the big muscles on the front of your thighs that lift you out of chairs and upstairs, they get raided first because they're some of the largest protein reserves you have. That's the acidosis pathway. And here's the hopeful part, the part we come back to later. This same research shows that reducing the acid load helps quiet that demolition crew back down, which means what's on your plate genuinely matters here. Hold that thought. Quick question for you, and I read these, drop it in the comments. Which came first for you? The stairs getting harder or getting winded on flat ground? Just type stairs or flat. I want to see what the pattern is for the people watching this. Now, the second pathway, because acidosis isn't working alone. Most people think of vitamin D as something you get from the sun and from your diet, and that's true, but only halfway. The vitamin D you get from sunlight or food is inactive. It's raw material. It has to be switched on inside your body before it can do anything, and that final activation step happens in your kidneys. So follow the logic. When the kidneys decline, they get worse at activating vitamin D. Active vitamin D drops. And your body notices because it uses vitamin D to manage calcium. To compensate, a small gland in your neck, the parathyroid, starts pumping out more of a hormone called parathyroid hormone, trying to keep your calcium balanced. Here's the twist that matters for your legs. That same parathyroid hormone, when it stays elevated, independently breaks down muscle. It's a second separate demolition signal. So now you have two things happening at once. Acidosis is one hand tearing at the muscle. Rising parathyroid hormone, driven by the vitamin D problem, is the other. Two distinct pathways, same sad outcome. Your legs get weaker. And low vitamin D on its own has been tied to worse muscle strength and physical function. The encouraging flip side shown in the clinical reviews is that correcting vitamin D can measurably improve muscle strength and physical function in people with kidney disease. That's a real lever. But I promise to be honest with you, so here's the honest part most food videos skip. If your kidneys are the thing that can't activate vitamin D, then simply sitting in more sunshine or eating more of it may not be enough on its own once kidney function is truly reduced, because you're making more raw material for a factory that's running slow. For someone in the early stages or trying to prevent problems, Getting that raw material still matters. But for someone already diagnosed with kidney disease, the doctor may need to prescribe an already activated form of vitamin D. That's not a detail. That's exactly the kind of thing that makes the difference between guessing and getting it right. And it's why the conversation with your doctor is going to be an action step later, not an afterthought. There's a third pathway, and this one connects directly back to something we talked about in the kidney video. If you saw that one, this is the same toxin we discussed, and wart, so this is going to click into place fast. Your gut is home to trillions of bacteria, and as they break down your food, they produce various byproducts. One of those byproducts is a compound called indoxyl sulfate. In a person with healthy kidneys, indoxyl sulfate gets filtered out and sent on its way, no problem. But as kidney function declines, it can't clear this toxin efficiently. So indoxyl sulfate starts to build up in the bloodstream. Doctors call compounds like this uremic toxins, waste that the kidneys are supposed to remove but no longer fully can. Now, we already knew indoxyl sulfate was hard on the kidneys themselves, but the newer research shows it does something else, something directly relevant to your legs. Indoxyl sulfate damages the power plants inside your muscle cells. Every muscle cell runs on tiny structures called mitochondria. Those are the engines that produce the energy your muscle needs to contract and to rebuild itself. The 2025 work is clear that this gut-derived toxin drives mitochondrial dysfunction in muscle, choking off that energy production. And it pushes on that same demolition machinery we talked about earlier. So think about what that means. It's not only that acid and hormones are tearing muscle down, it's that the very energy system your muscles need to repair and hold themselves together is being poisoned from the gut side. Weaker construction crew on top of a more aggressive demolition crew. And this is where the gut-kidney connection becomes genuinely useful, because it means the health of your gut bacteria isn't a side issue. It's part of the muscle story. If you can shift your gut ecology toward bacteria that produce less of this toxin, you take pressure off the whole system. We'll come back to exactly how in the food section, and it ties straight into the fermented food some of you already started from the last video. So there it is, 3 pathways: acid tearing down muscle, a vitamin D and parathyroid problem tearing down muscle, and a gut toxin poisoning the muscle's energy supply. All 3 set in motion by the same thing: kidneys that aren't keeping up. All 3 pulling in the same direction on the same muscles, the ones in your legs that keep you upright and independent. Now let me show you a story of someone pushing back on all 3 at once.
I want to tell you about Frank, because Frank's story is honest, and honest is more useful than miraculous. Frank is 68 from Asheville, North Carolina. He came in worried about his balance. He'd stumbled twice, nothing dramatic, but enough to scare his wife. His lab showed exactly the picture we've been describing. Kidney function down a notch from where it had been a few years back, a mild acid buildup, and low vitamin D. And his grip strength, which is one of the simplest ways we track this, had slipped. Now here's what Frank did that so many people do, and I don't blame him for it one bit. When he heard kidney, he panicked and cut nearly all the protein out of his diet, because somewhere he'd absorbed the idea that protein is bad for kidneys. And in doing that, he actually made the muscle loss worse. He was starving the very tissue he was trying to save. So we didn't do anything flashy. Working with his doctor, Frank did 3 things over about 3 months. He shifted his plate toward more alkalizing foods to ease the acid load. He added a daily fermented food for the gut side. And this is the important one: he stopped crash restricting his protein and instead ate a steady, appropriate amount that his doctor and a dietitian set for him specifically. The result was not a miracle. I want to be very clear about that. Frank did not become a 20-year-old. What happened was quieter and honestly more believable. Over those months, his grip strength stopped falling and started to inch back up. And by the end, he could get out of a low chair without using his arms. His words were simple. He told me, "I stopped feeling like I was leaking strength every week." That's it. A trend that reversed. A slow leak that got plugged.
His doctor was the one who signed off on every change, and his doctor was the one watching his numbers the whole way through. That's what realistic looks like.
So let's talk about the specific foods and habits Frank and people like him actually use, and which mechanism each one targets. Everything on this list connects back to the 3 pathways we just covered. Nothing here is random. Nothing here is a magic bullet. Each one is a way to take pressure off one of those 3 engines of muscle loss. Remember the first mechanism. Acid buildup switches on the muscle demolition crew. So the most direct food lever you have is to eat in a way that lowers your body's acid load. And that means leaning your plate toward fruits and vegetables, which are alkalizing, and away from a diet that's heavy in acid-producing foods. My favorite on this front, and some of you know it from the kidney video, is red cabbage. It's alkalizing, it's inexpensive, it keeps for weeks in the fridge, and it's loaded with the deep purple compounds called anthocyanins that fight inflammation, which matters because inflammation is part of this whole picture too. But honestly, the specific vegetable matters less than the pattern. More plants, more color across the day. The practical insight most people miss: how you cook it changes what you get. Boiling red cabbage in a big pot of water and pouring that water down the drain throws away a lot of the good compounds. Instead, shred it raw into a slaw, or saute it quickly with a little olive oil and a splash of vinegar, which actually deepens the color and the nutrient content. Keep it bright, keep it a little crisp. One real caution here, and this is important. If you already have significant kidney disease, some high potassium fruits and vegetables need to be managed carefully because damaged kidneys can struggle to clear potassium, and that's serious. This is not a load up on unlimited vegetables message for someone with advanced disease. It's a shift the balance under guidance message.
Which vegetables and how much is exactly the kind of thing your doctor or a kidney dietitian should tailor to you. The second mechanism was the vitamin D and parathyroid hormone problem. So you want to support your vitamin D status, with the honest caveat I already gave you. On the food side, the best sources are fatty fish like salmon and sardines, egg yolks, and fortified foods like milk and some cereals. On the sunlight side, short, regular exposure. Think 10 to 20 minutes on your arms and face a few times a week, not baking for hours. Helps your skin make its own. Here's the practical, honest layer. If you're in the prevention camp, kidneys still working reasonably well, getting that raw material through food and sensible sun is a genuinely good habit. But if you've already been diagnosed with reduced kidney function, remember, your kidneys are the activation factory. And that's the part that's struggling.
So the move there is not to guess and megadose yourself with over-the-counter pills. The move is to get your vitamin D level actually measured and let your doctor decide whether you need a regular supplement or a prescription-activated form. More is not automatically better here. And with kidney issues, self-dosing fat-soluble vitamins can backfire. Third mechanism, the gut toxin, indoxyl sulfate, poisoning your muscle's energy supply. This is the one you can influence from a direction almost nobody thinks about, your gut bacteria. The idea is straightforward. Indoxyl sulfate is produced by certain gut bacteria breaking down protein. If you nudge your gut ecosystem toward friendlier bacteria, you can lower how much of that toxin gets produced in the first place. And two of the simplest, oldest tools for that are fermented foods, kefir and sauerkraut. If you started these after the kidney video, this is your reason to keep going.
They deliver live beneficial bacteria, and in the case of sauerkraut, fiber that feeds the good bugs. The practical insight, you have to buy the right kind. Most sauerkraut on a regular grocery shelf is pasteurized, which kills the live cultures. It's sitting on a warm shelf, not in the refrigerated section. You want the refrigerated kind that says live or raw or unpasteurized on the label. Same with kefir. Look for live active cultures. And start small, a few tablespoons of kraut or half a cup of kefir a day, because if your gut isn't used to it, jumping in too fast can leave you bloated. Build up slowly. A caution here too, kefir contains potassium and phosphorus, and sauerkraut is high in sodium. For most people, that's fine in small daily amounts, but if you have advanced kidney disease and you're watching potassium, phosphorus, or sodium, this is another one to clear with your care team first.
Drop an A or a B for me here. Type A if you already eat fermented foods regularly. B if this would be brand new for you. I'm curious how many of you are starting from scratch. This is the one that trips up almost everyone. So listen closely, because getting this wrong is exactly the mistake Frank made. When people hear that protein is hard on the kidneys, many of them do what Frank did. They slash protein to almost nothing out of fear. And that is a disaster for your muscles, because protein is the raw material your body needs to rebuild the muscle that acidosis and toxins are tearing down. Starving your muscles of protein to protect your kidneys can leave you weak, unsteady, and falling, which is its own catastrophe. But the opposite mistake is just as real. Overloading on protein, the mountains of protein powder and giant portions that fitness content pushes, does add strain to compromised kidneys.
So this is genuinely a balance, and it's the clearest your doctor has to set the number item on this whole list. Here's the commonly cited starting framework, and I want to be careful how I say this. For many people with reduced kidney function who are not on dialysis, guidelines often point to a moderate protein intake. A frequently referenced range is around 0.6 to 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. Not zero, not a bodybuilder's portion, a moderate, deliberate amount. But, and this is critical, that range is not one size fits all. And it flips entirely for someone on dialysis, who actually needs more protein, not less. Your stage of kidney function completely changes the target. So please do not pick a number off this video and run with it. Use it to have a specific conversation. The practical move is to spread whatever amount is right for you across your meals, rather than dumping it all at dinner. Because your body uses protein for muscle building more efficiently in steady portions through the day. Food is most of this video, but I'd be doing you a disservice if I stopped there, because the research on uremic sarcopenia names one more countermeasure explicitly alongside nutrition: exercise. Specifically, a combination of gentle resistance work and regular walking. Here's why it belongs on a list about kidneys and food. Remember, the core problem is that your body has tipped toward breaking muscle down faster than it builds it up. Resistance movement sends the opposite signal. It tells your body to build and hold on to muscle. It directly counteracts the demolition. And I mean genuinely gentle. This is not the gym. Standing up from a sturdy chair and sitting back down 10 times is a resistance exercise for your legs. Rising onto your toes while holding the kitchen counter. A resistance band looped around your thighs. 2 or 3 short sessions a week, plus whatever walking you can comfortably do. The practical insight? Pair the movement with your protein. Doing a little resistance work and then having a protein-containing meal within an hour or so gives your muscles both the signal to build and the raw material to build with at the same time. If you have kidney disease, heart issues, or any balance problems, start any new exercise with your doctor's okay, and ideally, someone nearby the first few times. Safety first, always. Before we put this together into a routine, let me protect the work you're about to do. Because there are a handful of mistakes that quietly cancel out everything we just covered. And I've watched good people make every one of them. Mistake 1, cutting out protein entirely out of kidney fear. We covered this, but it's so common and so damaging that it's worth saying again. Fear-driven total protein restriction accelerates the exact muscle wasting you're trying to prevent. The answer is a right-sized amount set with your doctor, not 0. Mistake 2, ignoring a mildly abnormal lab because the doctor didn't seem worried. This is Marilyn's story from the very beginning. A slightly off kidney number got noted and forgotten, and the connection to her legs was never made. Mild does not mean meaningless. If you've ever had a kidney number flagged, even once, even years ago, that is worth a specific follow-up, not a shrug. Mistake 3, doing the food but skipping the gut piece. People love the idea of eating a magic vegetable and stop there. But if the gut toxin pathway is a real part of your picture, focusing only on alkalizing foods while ignoring the fermented food gut side of things
means you're only fighting on 2 fronts out of 3. Address the whole system. Mistake 4, and the most important one, treating this as purely a fitness problem and never having the kidney conversation. Everything in this video is meant to work alongside real medical care, not replace it. None of these foods is a substitute for actual kidney monitoring, for your prescribed medications, or for a professional diagnosis. If your legs are weakening, the single most powerful thing you can do is bring the kidney question to your doctor. Food supports that. It does not stand in for it. Let me make this easy, because a plan you'll actually follow beats a perfect plan you won't. Here's how you fold all 3 pathways into a single ordinary day. Call it your kidney and legs plate. In the morning, get a little sunlight on your arms if the weather allows, and have a breakfast with a real moderate portion of protein. Eggs are a simple choice, yolk included for the vitamin D.
Midday, build your lunch plate around color. That alkalizing shift, a good pile of vegetables like a red cabbage slaw, alongside whatever else you're having to ease the acid load. Once a day, your fermented food, half a cup of kefir or a few forkfuls of live sauerkraut, worked in wherever it fits. A couple of times a week, before or near a meal, your few minutes of gentle chair stands or band work. And spread your protein across all your meals rather than piling it into one. If that feels like a lot, here's the simplest possible version. 1 sentence. Every day, add 1 alkalizing vegetable, 1 fermented food, and a moderate portion of protein. And 2 or 3 times a week, do 10 sit-to-stands from a chair. That's the floor. Do that much consistently, and you're touching all 3 pathways. Here are your concrete next steps. 5 of them, and the first ones cost you nothing but a phone call. 1.
If you haven't had your kidney function checked recently, call and ask for it specifically. The 2 numbers to ask about by name are your EGFR and your creatinine. Write those down. EGFR and creatinine. Ask what yours are and ask whether they've changed over time. 2, ask your doctor to check your vitamin D level. And if it's low, ask specifically whether, given your kidney function, you need a regular supplement or a prescription activated form. Don't leave that decision to a guess in a supplement aisle. 3, do not self-restrict your protein. Instead, ask your doctor or a kidney dietitian what the right protein amount is for your specific stage. Bring them the exact question. Given my kidney numbers, how much protein should I be eating to protect my muscle without straining my kidneys? 4, start the gentle movement this week. Chair stands, a daily walk you can manage, but clear it first if you have heart, balance, or kidney concerns. 5, and this one is non-negotiable. If you have already been diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, run every single thing in this video by your nephrologist before you change anything. The foods, the supplements, the protein, all of it. Your situation is specific, and the person managing your kidneys needs to be the one steering. So here's my challenge to you, and it's a small one. For the next 7 days, do the simple version. 1 alkalizing vegetable, 1 fermented food, a moderate protein portion each day, and 10 chair stands a few of those days. Just 7 days. Then come back and tell me in the comments, did getting up out of your chair feel even a little easier? I read these and I want to hear it. And while you're down there, tell me what you already do. A lot of you have habits that fit right into this, and other people watching learn from what's worked for you. So share it. If this helped you understand something nobody had connected for you before, do me one favor and pass it along to someone whose legs have been getting weaker, because they may be sitting on the exact same missing piece Marilyn was, and nobody's told them either. That's how this reaches the person who needs it. And if you want more of these, subscribe so the next one finds you. One last thing, and I mean this seriously. Everything today is educational, and it is not a substitute for your own medical care. Kidney disease is managed individually, and food and supplements can interact with kidney function and with medications, Potassium, phosphorus, vitamin D, and protein all need to be handled with your care team, especially if you have chronic kidney disease or take medication for blood pressure, diabetes, or your heart. Please make these decisions with your doctor, not instead of your doctor. Take care of those legs.
They've carried you this far, and with the right daily habits, they can carry you a good deal further. I'll see you in the next one.